So hi, folks. I'm Sharon Meyer. I'm the nutritionist at the Institute for Health and Healing. I'm the functional nutritionist, and Institute for Health and Healing is part of Sutter's integrative program. So today we are going to be talking about diets, and clearly this is a popular title today, or topic. So let's start with this. So dieting, as we know, is a bazillion-dollar business. It has been in the past, and it continues to be. I mean, if you go into bookstores, well, pre-COVID, of course, you would see that there were hundreds and hundreds of books in how to lose weight. And that topic, and anything. So all these weight loss books and diets, anything from a grapefruit to a cabbage diet or an egg diet, you name it, has been around for a very long time. But the truth is about all diets, they work. They work for a period of time, and then they don't work anymore. So it really gets to be which are the ones that actually work best for you. Okay, so, and we have so many different diets now, anything from the Hcg diet to keto, sometimes carnivore, and then on the other end of the spectrum, just a vegetable diet. So fascinating things, and let's go through a lot of different things, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about those. So my philosophy about dieting is it's important to lose the weight, because if you're thinking about making lifestyle changes, that's not going to happen if you've got some excess weight on your body. And I can speak from experience around this, because a long time ago, I would say to patients, don't be cutting calories or anything like that, just make lifestyle changes. And women would sit in front of me and say, yeah, right. And I'd say, well, if you did this, you'd lose a pound. And they'd come back about a month later and say, I've only lost a pound in a month. This is not good enough. And now the diet substantiates the idea that we need to, the data rather, and the research substantiates that we need to lose the weight as soon as possible. Get it off as fast as you can. And there are many reasons for that, particularly that the fat tissue is extremely inflammatory. And the other part, too, compliance. So compliance only happens when people start to see results, right? If you're not losing the weight, you're going to be looking for something else in order to lose the weight. The other part, too, of course, is that we have when we put on the weight, it's around the waist area. So that visceral fat, very inflammatory, and it actually increases weight gain, too. And if you're stressed, you'll see more of the weight going on around the waist, too, because cortisol has high amounts of cortisol receptors in that fat tissue around the waist, 4 times more than anywhere else in the body. So of course you're going to see the fat increasing around the middle too. So here is the truth, folks. You will gain weight if you eat too many starchy carbs and a lot of sugar. There is no shadow of a doubt. That is where it starts. So let's start to review some of the diets that there are around. And I hear this all the time. Lots of people telling me that they are moving towards a plant-based diet. So that be vegetarian or vegan. So let's start off with reviewing that. Ideally, if I saw vegetables on everybody's food plan as the first thing that they ate, I'd be very happy. But that's not the case. So when people start to move in that direction to a plant-based, we start to see lots more of the carbs come back into their diet. So lots more of the grains, lots of the starches too. So with vegan, really high on the grains, and grains gets to be the substitute for everything else, and it's grains on the plate rather than the vegetables first. With vegetarian, definitely more grains, and in both the diets, there's a lot more bread consumed, there's a lot more pasta, quinoa, rice, bulgur, all of those different types of grains, actually a lot of corn too. With vegetarian, there's the increase of the grains and some of the legumes, but there's also a high amount of dairy as well. So if we started off with vegetables, I'd be very happy with that kind of change. So most of the times, from a weight loss point of view, the vegan and the vegetarian diet are not great for weight loss. The next one is the Mediterranean diet, and there's so much research around the Mediterranean, really around the Mediterranean diet and heart health. Great research around it. But there are different versions of the Mediterranean diet, right? Firstly, there's the healthy Mediterranean, and then there's the not so healthy. And it comes back to, again, the grains. Pasta, croissant, bread, pastries, all of those being included in the Mediterranean diet. And we know that's not healthy, and we know we're not going to lose the weight on that. But one of the good things about the Mediterranean diet is the lifestyle. And the lifestyle is about food is so very important. And it's about fresh food every day. And the great things about the Mediterranean diet is that the fresh food's going to be lots of vegetables. It's going to be fish, chicken, a bit of beef or red meat, occasionally, not that often, legumes, beans, lentils, those sort of things. And then, but it's very low in added sugar, seldom any soda. And then when they drink wine, it's a small amount of wine. It's not like having a bottle every night between, say, one or two people. So everything about the Mediterranean diet, that when they eat these foods, it's small quantities of these foods too. Portion size is pretty impressive. And the important part about this is a high amount of olive oil. And as you've heard me talk often enough, is that the olive oil has 30 different phytochemicals and phytonutrients in them. So when we look at this, if we look at the Mediterranean diet and we look at the emphasis is on the vegetables, some protein, some legumes, some fats, some oils, some fish, that kind of stuff is really healthy for the body, right? And then dessert, most of the countries along the Mediterranean is going to be fruit. So there's not a lot of the sweets and the sugar added to that. As I say, there's healthy and unhealthy Mediterranean. And if you're going in that direction, then you want to be going with a healthy. When I put patients on the Mediterranean diet, we really scale down on the grains, remove the grains, make sure there's no gluten in those grains. And I have seen people lose weight. It's not a lot of weight fast, but it's steady over time. So Mediterranean diet does have some attributes to it. The Paleo Diet is the next one we're reviewing, and that's vegetables, protein, nuts, seeds, fats, oils, and fruit. No grains, no legumes, no dairy. So I've seen people lose weight with this, but not as much as you would expect, because there's a little bit of an overcompensation on the amount of nuts that are consumed. Because nuts gets to be used for many things, nut flours, nut butters, all of that. And so it's about quantity too. Portion sizes are really important, even with the paleo. It's good from an inflammatory point of view, but we've got to watch what is eaten as well. There's also the autoimmune paleo diet. So the AIP diet is one step further. It takes away or eliminates a lot more of the inflammatory foods. So with an AIP, autoimmune paleo, it's vegetables, protein, coconut oils, fruit. With the vegetables, you eliminate all the nightshades. And the nightshades are tomatoes and eggplant and potato and peppers, chili, goji berries, and there's some more. But you can eat fruit. All protein is fine on the AIP diet except for eggs. Eggs, we know, can be very problematic for many people. Oil and fats, no butter or seed oils. So you can use olive oil, avocado oil. You can use some of the animal fats like tallow and lard and duck fat, as long as it comes from very good sources. You can use, I think I said coconut oil. The only nut that's allowed to be eaten on an AIP diet would be coconut. So what you would be eliminating would be grains, dairy, legumes, as with the paleo, the nightshades, eggs, nuts, and seeds. So people really lose weight on this, but it's about sustaining that, and after a time, they will move into some other directions, which is absolutely fine. But somebody that has a lot of inflammation or some autoimmune stuff going on, I will use this diet, and the results are quite outstanding, even from a point of Hashimoto's. Another protocol I use is what we call the Hcg protocol, or the Hcg protocol. I think I've put about 4,000 people on this protocol over a long period of time. But it's a very low-calorie diet, and anywhere from 700 to 1,000 calories. But what's supportive with this is homeopathy. So homeopathy is a supplement that goes with the protocol. The food that gets eaten pretty much is vegetables, protein, and fruit. It's very successful, and people have done extremely well on this. And then keto. Keto is extremely trendy at the moment, but it may be trendy, but there's a lot of research with some incredible success rates and some benefits too, from brain health to cardiovascular, certainly diabetes, cancer, energy when people are very tired or fatigued. The keto has been very helpful with that, but it's also very good for depression, moods, and definitely weight loss too. So the keto is about a high-fat diet, it's medium protein, it's low on the carbs. And the vegetables you consume are above ground, so no root vegetables, which tend to be a lot more starchy. And then it's based on macros. So macros are your macronutrients, and your macronutrients are going to be carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So it's very, very successful if you can maintain it for a period of time, like 6 weeks or even 2 months to 3 months. People do really well on that. Sometimes I will put people on the carnivore diet, and this is really from a therapeutic point of view, that there's something going on with the body, and people are very reactive to all kinds of fiber or vegetables. And there are lots of people that have that, especially when it comes to some of the digestive issues. And so carnivore is no carbs at all. It's pretty much protein, but it's not a long period of time. People can't endure it for a long time. It gets very boring. But the other protocols I'll use will be sort of detoxification and cleanse programs, and they really help with some weight loss too, because you're supporting the liver and the kidney and some of the lymphatic tissue. Anti-inflammatory diets, and then all of the things that help with digestion. So the SCD diet, FODMAPs, biphasic, all of those are important from a gut issue. Low lectin diet. So there are many different places that we can go when it comes to specific diets. So the weight loss is important, and the easy part of all of this is about being on any one of these protocols and losing the weight. That's the easy part. The hardest part is how to keep it off, right? People go on diets, and this is why it's such a multi-billion industry, is because people go on diets and then they come off the diet, and then they regain the weight, and then they're looking for another diet to go on to lose the weight. And so what do we do about that? Because that's the important part. How do we maintain things or find something that works for each one of us? And we start off with low carbs. We've got to cut the carbs to the point that works for each one of us. So it's kind of finding the sweet spot for the carbs, right? So if you've been on a low-carb diet, for example, so say you've been on a keto, or you've been on the Hcg diet, or you've been on even, say, the carnivore, any one of these other diets, you slowly increase your carbs to a point. So keto is normally under 20 grams of carbs. So if you've been on keto, you've been on it for a while, you've lost the weight, you slowly increase your carbs to maybe 50 grams, and you see how you feel on that. What is my set point for that? And then you can slowly increase that to maybe 70 grams or even up to 100. And the reverse can be said of that. If you haven't been on a keto diet and you've been on really high amounts of carbs, then you start to drop it down from, say, start off with 150 grams, drop it down to 130, down to 100, and further down until you find that sweet spot that works for you. The emphasis really needs to be on the vegetables, of course, and maybe you move away from the starchy and a lot of the vegetables that are grown above ground, and then you play around with the amount of carbs that are in your diet. You have to use a tracking app, otherwise it's really difficult to be pretty good at compliance. So use a tracking app and see where you go with it. And you could try some carb cycling too. So carb cycling means is you cut out the carbs for the week or really drop your carbs down very low. And then one day on the weekend you have some high carbs, but it shouldn't be things like pizza and gluten and all those heavy grains. You could do rice. Maybe that would be a better substitute for something like instead of having some gluten. Or if it's tricky for you, you might try doing the carbs at night, a little bit of the carbs at night. So it's really important for you to find that sweet spot for you. Not too many, not too little. And then it's always about an adjustment. And the adjustment gets to be, how do you feel? How does the body feel? Are you feeling sluggish? Do you have energy? Do you feel you're gaining weight? Do you feel there's water retention? All of these get to be questions as to how you increase and decrease your carbs. And so the question is, well, why are the carbs such a big deal for us now? Well, firstly, the carbs or the carbohydrates and a lot of the plant food that we consume has been hybridized. You know, tomatoes used to be the size of a berry when they were initially found, which was in Peru. Now we know that they can be the size of a baseball, so large. So things have changed. And the same thing has happened with a lot of our carbohydrates and starches. And we've become very starch resistant, meaning how our bodies deal with the starches is not as functional as it used to be. The other part, too, is the stress. You know, the fat tissue and the cortisol, again, that increases our increases our appetite for starch, and we want more and more of those. So we've got to start somewhere. And we can start with just increasing and decreasing the carbs and see where we go with that. And then we need to learn how to eat intuitively. What are the things that give my body energy? And I think I'm going to talk about that one next week.